Hi, my name is Sridhar Rangan. I'm the Festival Director of the Kashish 2020 Virtual, which is going to start from July 22nd to 30th. Today, we are in conversation with two amazing student filmmakers who are part of the student film competition number two. So, the student competition basically has an award, cash award of 20,000 rupees, sponsored by Whistling Woods. The student short film competition has 12 films, and it's split into two separate segments: student short competition 1 and 2. Welcome to this Q&A session, and Abhra Das, the panel coordinator, is going to conduct the Q&A, and let's have a great chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us and also sending us your films. I'm going to start with, each one of you. And first, I would like to ask you, a little bit of your background as to which city you're tuning in from. Also, tell us about the course that you were doing, the college that you're currently in. Sakshi?
Until very recently, I was in New York. I recently flew back to Bombay because of the situation. So I'm still on the fence as to what city I am in, but currently I'm in Bombay. I was studying at School of Visual Arts when I produced this film. I graduated in May 2019, like last year.
So this film, Show and Tell, was a part of your diploma film or something like that?
Yeah, it was my thesis film project.
All right. And Anna, where are you joining us from?
Yeah, I'm joining from Skopje. It's the capital city of North Macedonia. And this is also my graduation film, the last film that I did during my studies as film director. I studied film at the Academy in Skopje, here in my hometown. And this is a film that I had been developing for maybe 3 years before we shot it. Then another co-writer from Romania joined because I wanted to make it as subtle as possible. And I needed like a second pair of eyes and a second pair of hands to make sure that I'm not destroying the subject that I'm working on, since it's such a sensitive subject and it was the first time that I was doing a film like this, and I really didn't want to be, I felt that I was treading on really thin ice, and I wanted to make sure that there's nothing offensive or that could be probably in any way damaging.
When you said it is actually a very sensitive issue that you portray, where we, and you have actually managed to not show a lot of things. A lot of things are not shown in the film, but we see reactions. And especially there's one beautiful scene where the father, where we see a visible, he's hurt. Father is at the police station filing a report for his missing son. And the conversation that happens, at the police station is such a beautiful commentary on, how, as a society, we are, we have certain fixed notions about some people,
Yeah.
and, and the stereotypes, and also how lack of sensitization, works in a legal framework. So could you please tell us about that scene?
Exactly the way in which discrimination takes place in Macedonia, because it's a pro-Western community, and we have when you see like the laws in Macedonia, there is the anti-discrimination law, so it's considered a hate crime if you do something to an LGBT person. However, if you make fun of them, it's considered like pop culture. So there's really no sensitivity as to how you behave. I mean, as long as you're not physically violent, it's considered normal. Everything is very normalized. And it's very common actually for different groups of people, maybe not so much as individuals, but more when they come together as groups to behave like bullies towards somebody who is considered different. And this is so normal that, I mean, even when the audience in Macedonia was watching the film, they didn't react like this was something very bad taking place. And this is also the reason why I decided to end the scene with such a long sequence of the policeman laughing at him. I mean, it was almost unnaturally long, so that we can feel that this is something awkward, it's not really normal. Yet from the side of the policeman, you don't feel that they have this awareness of how they're harming the guy.
I would say when we all through the film we see the trouble, we feel the pain of the protagonist, but the last scene you choose to show us the sky with the cherry blossoms, which is such a which is an image full of hope. Why did you choose to do that?
I wanted to show relief at the end, that even if it was really his son whom he saw, if really his son is gay and he knows that being gay in such a community, he will also go through the much of the same troubles that he himself went through. So even if all that is true, there's a certain sense of liberation after having for the first time spoken who he is, and try to normally explain that yes, I do have like sexual relations with somebody who is not from the opposite sex, and it's like something that I do my whole life, and he is already in his 50s.
It's really a powerful scene. Well, your film ends on a positive note, and so does Sakshi's.
Yeah.
Right? Sakshi, your film, the film talks about deep-rooted patriarchy, and you know how children are subjected to gender stereotypes from a very young age. We at Kashish, we also have one more film called Mall by Jerry Hoffman, which is also a part of the competition, of the student competition. You know, could you tell us about your process of scripting the film, and also your film talks about Indians abroad, right? The diaspora culture there.
Okay, so there are two main situations that led me to this place today. One of them is that I had a friend of mine, like a couple of years ago, gave birth to a boy child, and everyone in the family was so happy and everything, right? And I'm like, that's great, it's a baby. And then the child had a cousin who was a girl, and she was like approximately 6 or 7. And when I had gone to meet the baby, she like comes up to me constantly, and she is like, hey, look at this toy, and hey, look at that toy, and you won't believe the toys. It was a broom, it was a kitchen set, it was all of these things she was using and playing as toys. And that wasn't, I mean, that didn't sit very well with me. And I was constantly thinking about it, and I was like, why is it that women in general tend to be exposed to a very certain set of toys and beliefs and worlds as kids? And similarly with the boys, right? They're also they're meant to be something that probably they don't want to, you know. And then one day I walk into H&M and I see one section that's all greens and blues and dinosaurs, and one section that's pinks and purples and unicorns. And, take a wild guess what belongs to who, So that's where like I started thinking about this, and I really wanted to talk about it, and I couldn't think of a better way to talk about it than a film, because that's what I do. But the thoughts in my head were very like full of anger, in a lot of ways. But I thought the best way to talk about it and to treat this is with a certain sense of humor, because humor generally comes, that wherever you do apply humor, it tends to make the situation and things lighter, and people in general tend to, just feel relaxed in a lot of ways. And I think it's important to also have these conversations where you don't make the other person defensive, irrespective of like what their beliefs are. So I started writing this, and I also because it was as part of my thesis film in SVA. It was I needed help because it was the first time I was actually writing a short film. So I got my co-writer on board, Ramesh, and he's great. He's originally from Sri Lanka, and all of our conversations was so like I couldn't believe how much similar we thought in terms of South Asian mentality when it comes to this. And you would think that you're going to the West, and the West is more progressive in a lot of ways, but is it really? And you carry your mentality with you there, and this was just like representing that in a lot of ways.
So Sakshi, tell us about the casting procedure. The mother and the kid, were they people who are professional actors or people you knew? How was that?
As for casting, I went like for casting the mother and the father. I held like proper casting sessions where I called them in for multiple rounds and I auditioned them, etc., etc. For the kid, it was difficult because I was in a foreign country where I wanted someone very specific. I wanted a 7-year-old kid from like who would be like from the Indian origin, right? And it was really hard to find that. The kid who was in the film, Shan, he's actually half Italian and half Sri Lankan. His mom is Sri Lankan, and when I did audition him, I was like, oh my god, this look is perfect. I love how he is so fragile looking, right? I love how he is so tiny. And interesting thing, when I did first cast him and we were on set, and he was a little nervous, and there's this whole scene with him and him holding the Barbie dolls. It was so funny to see that he refused to actually touch a single doll. He's like, ew, I don't want to touch any Barbie doll. And I'm like, isn't that the point of this film? So I mean, it was quite a funny moment to have, like, a kid. He also told me in one of the rehearsal sessions that we had, he said that, can I tell you something? I'm like, yeah. Like, I don't want to be gay. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to be gay, but it was very interesting to see how he's a 7-year-old kid. He knows what it means to be gay, and he knows, or he has learned to already hate it in a way, and I don't blame the parents, I don't blame the kids, I don't blame anybody. I just blame society in general, where it, like, he goes to school and he's probably picked up on a couple of words that his classmates have said because of whatever reasons, and he's come back.
Right, the conditioning is such where like I said, it's just the way we are conditioned to believe, and patriarchy is so deep rooted that
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And that's in a way the point you are trying to make through the film. Also, now I'm going to ask you, as to where all your film has been shown, what has been the festival journey so far, and what are the reactions? What are people saying after watching your film?
My film first screened, apart like from my film screening, it premiered there. Then it's screened at Princeton Student Film Festival. Then it screened at the Big Apple Film Festival in New York, and it also won the best student film there. Then it didn't screen at People of Color International Exchange Film Festival because of the whole COVID-19 situation, but it also won in its competition. And of course now Kashish. How it was received, I think it was very, like, the crowd in those two particular film festivals were very different. Princeton had an older crowd, while the Big Apple Film Festival had like younger crowd and more mixed also because it was in New York. But I think what really like touched my heart was this really old woman comes up to me at Princeton, and she goes like, years ago she had to go through the same thing with her son, and she couldn't thank me enough to have made this film to just relive that whole situation and actually be happy about it. And I was like, stop, you're gonna make me cry. It was so heartfelt, and and that's the thing, like these are the things I want to make films for. I want to touch people's hearts and probably change their minds. I don't know, but it was just beautiful.
Oh, wonderful. Anna?
Yeah,
your festival journey so far?
Neon Hearts has screened at around 20 film festivals until now. I think half of them were regional here in Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, then in Europe, like Italy, England, and Kashish is the farthest that it will screen. And I noticed a difference between the specifically LGBT themed festivals and the like general themed festivals. Uh, when I was, of course, attending the screenings before this COVID chaos, um, during the screenings at the LGBT themed festivals, everybody was really quiet during the last police station scene, and you could feel the empathy with the main character. And usually during the Q&A after the screening at these festivals, people were really like touched, moved. And in the other situation, at the general festivals, people were mostly laughing, like they were understanding the scene at the police station as humor, which makes me really, brings me to this unfortunate conclusion that it's not only in my country, but also in the neighboring countries and a bit wider in the European continent, that this subject is still not sensitive enough, that they still can laugh at such lines, at such really chauvinistic jokes. And my point with these jokes was not to make the audience laugh, but just to replicate what would happen in a real situation if you go to a police station. Because really, if now in Skopje, in my hometown, if you go to a police station and try to denounce somebody for like LGBT connected hate crime, first thing that they would do, they would laugh at you, of course not take you seriously, and like maybe advise you not to be so sensitive. And then they would just file a report because it's what the law obliges them to do, but nothing really empathetic, nothing human to human.
Thank you so much, Anna and Sakshi, for your inputs, and over to you, Sridhar.
Really appreciate the very wonderful sharing of experiences, and I just love, Sakshi, what you mentioned about like the elderly person they're sharing her personal story with you. So like these are the reason we all make films. I mean, all of us, and I'm glad that like it's touching lives at a lot of places.